Hello and welcome to the HGC or Hardcore Giveaway and Gamers Club channel. My name is Daniel and this video is how to get your PS4 model 1215A up and running, at least until the power supply in 14-200P1A or B is at least under $100 or so. Alright, now this is a temporary solution, only should be used until the power supplies become available. I know a lot of times when you search for them, they are just sold out. Them particular models have an extremely bad burnout rate, and quite frankly, if you buy the stock power supply, it's going to burn out most likely on you fairly soon again anyway. But to get you up and running until you can actually find one of them, this may not look pretty, but it will get you up and playing if you have access to a power supply from an older 1115A model, which is ADP240CR. Alright, it's the 4-pin for the 1115A. The pinouts are identical in every way. The only problem is the shape. It will not fit into the 1215A model. But that's easy enough overcome by building a jumper wire. Now, what you see there, I took the prong leads off of a PlayStation 3 Slim that was murdered by somebody trying to heat gun their system and abandon it. And I'm basically I soldered on 2 wires, and I'm taping down the end pieces because I stripped the wire a little bit too far back and I didn't want any possibility of it accidentally touching each other, so I put a piece of styrofoam in between the leads and then put some electrical tape around it to prevent them from ever touching each other. The blue pieces of tape you see there are just to remind me which wire is which, one for the left, one for the right, but I will double check that with a multimeter just prior to putting it in and setting it up. So let's take a look at what we're doing. Let me zoom in here a little. Okay, I didn't zoom in real far, but it'll let you see it, and I'll get you some close-ups here in a little bit. Right here I'm just taking a little bit of styrofoam and I'm placing it between the leads that I soldered onto the connections. This bottom port I took off of an old power supply that was burned up, and basically I put the styrofoam in between the leads so that if it gets tweaked or bent or anything, it won't cause the leads to short out between each other. And I'm going to do a lot of taping on this, and sorry, this video is going to be kind of long because I'm going to do it in pretty much real time, so you get the idea that this is not a quick and easy fix. You will need to find some parts. Now, the one with the long pins, you can use 2 thin pieces of metal instead of finding an old PS3 or one off of an old broken PS4, and just tape a piece of tape, once you solder the wires to them, take a small block of wood in between them to space them so that it can be plugged into the power supply of the system without, okay, so this is the one I took off of the old power supply. Okay, and you see, kind of a quickie tape job. This is the one I took out of the old PS3 Slim. Okay, and then the blue tape I was telling you about, that lets me know right wire from left wire. I'm going to eventually take that off. But like I was saying, I'm doing this pretty much in real time, so you know how long this takes, and that it's a little involved. And like I said, it's not going to be the prettiest job when I'm done with it, but it will get you up and running if you have access to a 1115A You can buy them fairly cheap online, at least 50% less than the power supplies for the 1215A, which are N14-200P1A model. So you can buy one of them, use it until the 1215A model power supplies come down into a reasonable price, and then eventually buy one of them and actually install it into the system. After I show you a little bit of roach protection, how to roach proof the power supplies to prevent that from happening, because that was the reason for this conversion kit. The power supply for the 1215A, which is modeled N14200P1A, was just flat out not available. I did find one a few days later for $139. Okay, I charged the guy $10 to actually do this, plus the cost of the power supply. So he got off good. He's up and running until he can find a reasonable price power supply, and then I told him he can bring that power supply in and I'd install it for him for free. And then the power supply for the 1115A, once you find your reasonable priced 1215A model, you can just list it up for sale on eBay. You might take a $5 or $10 loss on the shipping, but hey, who cares? You was up and playing, right? Okay, so here's what I'm doing. I am confirming which side is my ground and which side is my positive. Basically what I'm doing is I'm ohming out each one so I know which ones are which, left or right, and then I'm going to put a little marker on the side of the plug itself so that I know right side from left side for both ends. That is very important, and I'll show you why when we go to plug it in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear a little strip of blue off, and I'm going to just basically tape it in place on the side that I plan on using for ground. And I'm going to take my electrical tape and I'm going to tear it in half, and I'm going to make basically a little blue dot. So this is my ground wire indicator. Easy, right? Okay, so now I need to do the other side. Always double check everything when you're done. Make sure you did not cross over or put the grounding wire on one side and then miss the ground on the other side, because if you plug this in backwards, you're gonna have a very nasty sound coming out of your machine and likely terminate your machine. So you want to make certain that the side you're using for ground is marked clearly on both sides. So here's what I'm doing. I'm checking to make certain I have a ground, and that I'm going to be putting the ground on the proper side. Okay. I got all of the ground marks both on each side, so now I know where my ground is, and I taped up the wires to kind of keep them together so they're not flopping all over the place. And I am going to once more triple check that I put the blue tape on the same side on each of these pins. So if I ohm out both pins on the blue side, I should get a reading. If I go to the other side, I should get no reading. So we're good to go there. Okay, see that? Nothing. And blue to blue, we have basically an open circuit. I know it said 0.0007, but that's just resistance over the length of wire. And this wire I made a little on the long side, but that's fine. It gives me plenty of room to work with. Now, the 4-pin connector in this model is long enough to allow you to play with the power supply off to the side. But now you have an issue here. You got this is all open. It'll actually allow it to run cooler, but you don't want all of the heat on the motherboard and everything in there. So what I recommend doing is taking the bottom half of the power supply for your system and putting it in that section without a circuit board and without the top. Okay, so I'll show you that here in a minute. We'll remove the top, and then we're going to plug up this. Now, the ground wire is the one closest to the back of the power system. Excuse me, the Xbox, the PS4. Ground is closest to the back side of the PS4, and your power side is closest to your ribbon cables and the disk drive. Remember that. You must do it right. Alright, so this is a ADP 200ER. Okay. Okay. Get that there. Alright, so what we're going to do here, hold on. Almost there. This is the ADP 240CR. This one comes from the 1115A model. All of the outputs are exactly the same with the exception of amperage or its listed wattage. Now the 1215A models, their power supplies are rated for 75 watts, I believe. They reduce the wattage of the power supplies, and that's one of the reasons why it's burning out. They reduced the consumption of the power of the PlayStation, but did not reduce the heat produced by the system. So the hotter air is burning out their power supplies. If you're putting in the 1115A power supply into this, you will have a power supply with the exact voltages you need and exact pinouts you need that's rated higher for the box as far as amperage and wattage that's usable. The game system will only use the amperage and wattage that it needs in order to operate. It's not going to overconsume. It's not going to overbiased. Unless you're like way super high. Then you don't have to worry about that. So higher amperage is good. It just means that the power supply will not work as hard to power the system. Okay, so let's get this here. This is the ADP 240CR, again 1115A. Let's set that over here, and we're going to, excuse me, oh, I forgot. This is a 4-pin, and so is the 1215A. The pinouts are absolutely identical. The voltages are absolutely identical, so you don't have to change that. This is the part that I took off of the old burned out power supply from a different model one. This is his actual power supply, and that's it there. So we're going to take this and we're going to put the blue tape to the outside of the box, and just like that. That lets me know that the blue side is the ground side and the black side is the power side. And we need to get that into the power supply on this. So the ground or negative on this power supply is on the left side, which is closest to the longest portion of the power supply. The positive is closest to the actual 4-pin connector. So sorry about the video. I pieced this together. We're coming back to the power supply again. Sorry about that. And I got it upside down. Oops. Okay, this is the ADP240CR again. Don't remember why I showed that a second time, because I'm narrating after the fact. Maybe because I had to make a second video later and I was re-going over the positives and negatives. So the positive side is closest to the 4-pin port, the negative side is closest to the full length of the power supply. We have the blue side in there, and we need to put the blue side toward the longest portion of the power supply, just like that. There we go. So we got that in, and now all we need to do is connect the 4-pin power supply into this, just like that. Now at this point you can turn the game system on and play just like it is. Okay, you set this off to the side, put a small fan on it, a little teeny fan, just something to get a little bit of airflow through the power supply to help it cool. Now I haven't put the lower half in here, and this will actually allow the system to cool itself more efficiently if you actually play it open like this. The game system will have to play upside down, but it's perfectly capable of doing that. Won't hurt it in the slightest. You just have to get used to playing it upside down, because you're not going to be able to have it upside right, because this box is going to stay open from this point on. And you'll have to have a little bit of room for your game system to play, and definitely want to keep little kids away from it. So keep that in mind if you decide to basically rig the box with the jumper lead like I showed. Okay, so let's see. Got a little bit more of this. I was talking about the taping the wires together and how long it was, that I didn't really need it that long, but I wanted it a little bit of length so that I can manipulate the drive around a little bit. Okay, so I'm just waiting for something new to show up in the video. Okay, here we go. I'm going to unplug the power supply here. I think this is where I actually dropped the lower half of the old power supply in the system, so that the hot air coming out of the heatsink, yeah, here it is, will actually be deflected away from the actual motherboard beneath it and allow it to go up into the air. See how that works? The air supply goes into the power supply, stays away from the motherboard itself, and is able to go through. Because you're not pushing air through the power supply, it'll actually speed up your airflow, allow it to run cooler by doing it this way. Okay, just like that. Got that plugged in. Probably be nice if you can extend that cable a little bit, but you can take that power supply, flip it around, and set it on the top of the back of the system to save a little bit of space. But remember, you're going to have to play the game system upside down. Sorry, there's just no getting around that. The motherboard for the 1115A will not fit down in that whatsoever, just by its design. Even if you're only trying to stick the motherboard in there without anything else, it just won't work. So simple jumper lead. Everything else in the power supply is identical, with the exception of configuration of the parts and the length of the power supply and where the location of the power output is. Okay, sorry I'm dragging this out. Didn't mean to. If you can find a longer cable of this, it works good. This one's fine. Just make sure, again, that your negative is in the right spots, and you put the lower half of the housing in there to help keep the heat away from the motherboard, and you got your power supply, and you're up and running. Okay. So I think I'm going to just end this here. I think you pretty much got the point. This does in fact work. I powered it up. My customer was happy, and he may even comment on this video. Alright, so if you can't afford to spend $149 on a power supply, you can make one of these cables from a couple of used parts and a couple of wires, solder them together, and just use the power supply from an old 1115A, which I think is a far superior model to this new one anyway, all the way around. So with the exception of the fact that they had a really cheap HDMI port, and in this particular model they did replace and upgrade that port during the manufacture. That's the only thing I can see that was actually done good for the 1215A models. Sorry. Alright. So I'm going to stop the narration here, and I'm going to cut some of this video shorter so that we're not sitting here babbling on. There we go. Okay, now like I was telling you, you can take the power supply and you can set it like this and run it that way with a fan going across it. You can go a little bit further and actually set it directly over where the power supply is. But with it like this, it'll help protect the power ribbons to the disk drive, and it will allow you to put a fan just cross flow to help cool the power supply just ever so little bit, and it will not affect the airflow going in the fan. The heat and air will be able to easily go through the power supply and clean up, and you'll be easily able to reverse airflow with a can of air and clean off the face of the heat sink from time to time. So it's actually fairly decent. That's the end of the video. Stay safe, happy gaming everybody, and don't forget to go check out my active giveaways playlist. I give away close to $100 a month on this channel, and everybody's invited. You don't have to do anything other than post a comment. I do also for other ways to get free entries, as well as for anybody wanting to help me out on giving away more stuff. I give them other opportunities to get a lot more. Stay safe, happy gaming, bye.